If you're someone who lives with chronic pain, you know exactly how it can feel like your whole world just shrinks, like you're just a passenger in your own life. But what if there was a way to flip that script, to go from feeling powerless to feeling proactive? Well, today, we're going to dive into a new way of thinking about chronic pain, one that puts you right back in the driver's seat.
You know, this quote just hits so hard, doesn't it? It's that feeling of being stuck, just waiting for a doctor to find that one magic pill, or for your family to finally understand what you're going through. Waiting for someone, anyone, to come along and just make it go away. It is an absolutely exhausting and frustrating place to be.
And that is the big question we're exploring today. Now, this isn't about some miracle cure. It's about a really powerful shift in your mindset, and it's backed by some practical tools that can help you get that control back and start living your life again, even with the pain.
All right, so first things first, let's just acknowledge what so many people are up against. We're going to call it life on hold, and it's all about understanding this very real trap that chronic pain sets.
This right here, this is a cycle that is so common. And look, it's totally understandable. Of course you feel sad, angry, or anxious. Your life has been turned upside down. And it's so easy for that to turn into blaming doctors who don't have the answers, or your loved ones who just don't seem to get it. The problem is, this whole cycle just keeps you stuck, waiting for someone else to fix it, which only makes that feeling of powerlessness even worse.
So how do we break that cycle? Well, here's where things start to change. It all starts with a concept called the ownership mindset. And I'm telling you, this is the absolute first key to taking back control.
Now, I need to be super clear about this. Ownership is not the same thing as self-blame, not even close. Self-blame is that awful, paralyzing feeling. It's that voice that whispers, "I'm worthless," or "there's no point." Ownership is the complete opposite of that. It's an empowering mindset that says, you know what? I am a worthwhile person and I have choices. It's not about being at fault for your pain. It's about taking responsibility for how you live with it. It's a huge difference.
Okay, so moving from mindset to action, let's get practical. Your first and maybe most powerful tool is something that sounds almost too simple, a diary. Because I'm telling you, tracking your pain can literally change everything.
Let me tell you about Paula. When her doctor told her to keep a pain diary, her first reaction was just anger. I mean, can you blame her? She knew she was in pain all the time. Why on earth would she want to write it down 3 times a day? It just felt like another chore, another unfair burden. But she reluctantly started doing it. And as she kept tracking, something incredible started to happen. She started to see a pattern that she'd never really noticed before. This constant push, crash, and burn cycle. On a good day, she'd push herself way too hard trying to get everything done, only to totally crash later, leaving her completely exhausted and in even more pain. The diary put that self-defeating pattern right there in black and white.
That diary gave her insight. It became the key that unlocked the connection between what she was doing and how she was feeling. For the first time, she had real data. And with that data, she could start making different choices that helped her regain control instead of just being a victim of that endless cycle.
So how do you actually start? It's really straightforward. Just 3 times a day, at regular times, write down your pain level. Jot down what you were doing. Track any medicine or anything else you did to feel better. Then, at the end of the day, just figure out the average. The most important thing here is just being consistent. That's what's going to unlock those patterns for you.
Okay, so you're tracking your pain. But what are you actually tracking? Well, the next step is to decode it, because it turns out your pain, it's not just one thing.
This is a total game changer. The pain experience actually has 2 different sides. First, you've got the physical sensation. That's the actual aching, the burning, the tightness in your body. But then you've also got the emotional response. That's the frustration, the sadness, the despair that so often comes along with it. And learning how to separate those 2 things, wow, it is incredibly powerful.
And this chart gives you a really practical way to do that. When you go to record your pain, you're actually going to give 2 different ratings, both on that 0 to 10 scale. One is for the physical feeling itself and how it's affecting what you can do. The other, separate rating, is for your emotional response. And here's the kicker. Notice how they don't have to be the same number. You could have a really high level of physical sensation, like a 7 or an 8, but with practice, you could get your emotional response down to a 3 or a 4.
This quote from a group of patients just says it all. We still have pain, but we feel so much better about it. We're in control, not the pain. And that's the whole goal right there.
You see, there's often a lot more you can do about your emotional response than the physical sensation itself, and that alone can make you feel a whole lot better. Now, before you jump in and grab a notebook, there's one more really crucial thing we need to talk about. The first step in all of this is awareness. But there's a surprising and very important twist on this path forward that you need to know about.
And I want to be really straight with you here because this is so important. When you first start paying this much close attention to your pain, you might actually feel worse for a little while, and that can be super discouraging if you aren't expecting it.
So why on earth does that happen? Well, for one, you're moving past any denial you might have been in. You're forcing yourself to bring the entire pain experience into your full conscious awareness. Your brain is suddenly paying really close attention to all this new data. But here's the crucial part. This is a completely normal and temporary part of the process. In fact, it's actually a sign that it's working.
And if there's one thing you take away from all of this, please let it be this. Changing your awareness of the pain fundamentally changes the experience of the pain. It is the foundation for everything else that comes after.
So the journey from feeling powerless to feeling proactive, it begins with one simple step. It starts with awareness. It starts with asking a question. So I'll leave you with this one to think about. What's the very first thing your diary could teach you?